The question of how matrimony affects or doesn't affect your credit score is a question that is asked so often and so many times that I feel necessary to address the basics on that subject here. The short answer is that there is no merger of credit scores with matrimony, but entanglements abound. There is a possibility that you live in a community property state. If you do, you know it. There's a possibility of owning real estate, of course, as joint tenants or tenants by the entirety. And there's also a kind of obscure legal doctrine known as the doctrine of necessaries. Let me explain further. Okay. When getting married, there are a lot of considerations that go into a picture of credit, but it's important to keep in mind that although there's no formal merger of credit scores in any sense, there are a lot of entanglements financially which have to do with the credit scores of both people that you should be aware of. I'm not going to go into exhaustive detail, but I want to highlight a few things that I think everyone should know. These are questions that are frequently asked, and because there are so many myths about this subject, I feel it's important that we address it, at least these particular aspects of this topic right now. Matrimony and your credit. When you get married, a lot of people are looking to buy real estate, and what they may or may not realize is that if there is a big disparity in the credit scores, the bank will you will find that the better credit score gets dragged down by the second credit score. In some cases, it may even be better that instead of holding real estate as joint tenants or tenants by the entirety, which is a form of joint tenancy that protects a married couple in the event of lawsuits or judgments, and so that they don't lose their home, that it might even be better sometimes for just one person to buy until later on you can get the credit score of the weaker credit score straightened out. There are community property states, Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington. If you live in any of these states, you know it. A community property state has separate kinds of laws about property that's held by married couples. And it's quite complicated, and it really needs the help of a lawyer if trouble comes into the marriage. And even between community property states, there's a lot of differences in the laws. One way that the weaker spouse can be helped by the stronger spouse is by what we call piggybacking, which is a perfectly legitimate, although somewhat controversial practice that's sometimes done between unrelated people, but no one disputes the fact that married people are entitled to do it. And by this I mean the one with the stronger credit makes the second party an authorized user on his credit cards. And this way, the good credit flows from the stronger party to the weaker party and helps boost the credit score of the weaker party. The average age of the account may be a lot higher. The debt to available credit ratio, all those things that help credit scores go up, in effect, are transfused into the weaker party by piggybacking, by making them an authorized user on the card. You don't even have to give the card out if you don't want to confuse your finances, or if there may even be a little bit of a question of trust involved. But the fact of actually making an authorized user will help the weaker credit without hurting the credit of the stronger credit. There's a little known legal doctrine of necessaries where one spouse can run up bills that the other one is responsible for. This comes up in divorce cases once in a while, but it's rare. It's nothing to be really troubled about, except it's good, I think, that you know it exists. So yes, it is possible for one spouse to be held responsible for the other spouse's debts as far as necessaries, which is pretty much what it sounds like, food, shelter, during the course of the marriage, although it's rare that anybody really invokes this doctrine. So I hope that clears up some of the myths around the matrimony and the credit scores. And as a matter of fact, the matrimony question coming up so often is very confusing to a lot of people who think that somehow or other the scores merge, but they don't. Thank you.